My Hawaiian correspondent Trey Carney. Um,
I am here at the scene.
I am here at the. How's the weather, Ollie? Shit's blowing. Thank you, Ollie. But yeah, dude, my buddy Trey Carney out in Hawaii, known since high school, and that's all we need for that. So I listened to The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. I listened to it. I listened to it in one sitting today. Yep, I listened to it on Audible. But yeah, listened to it. Had to speed because it's by narrated by Benedict Cumberbatch, and he was putting me to sleep, so I sped it up to 1.5.
Okay.
When I really want to, yeah, when I want to pay attention to something, I speed it up because then it's like I can't be like, you know,
you can't passively listen. Right?
Yeah, I'm not like, okay, what happened? It's like I gotta listen. When I'm not really, I'm just playing video games. I just throw it on. But yeah, so first of all, that book is, for the most part, it's a mind fuck. It's definitely over my intelligence level. I understood. I'd like to say I understood a good half of it. Some of it, though, it was just like, okay, I don't know what this means, and this isn't schoolwork, so I don't have to know what it means. So I'm just gonna let it keep running. But
no, you do.
Yeah. Okay. Fuck. Okay. Welcome to the school of Trey. But yeah, dude, right at the beginning, it gets you, and it's just time runs slower. Or what is it? I've already forgotten. Runs faster in mountains and slower at sea level, or vice versa.
That's right. Yeah, you got it.
So right away, it was like, I guess I always kind of understood it because I know like astronauts are like, they age slower technically, right? They're like a millisecond ahead of time when they get back or something.
Sure.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. Well, because you know that's what. Well, you know that is true, right?
Absolutely.
It's negligible, but
the big one they like to give in practical examples is just like the watches on GPS. So on the actual satellites flying around, right? If you imagine them clapping seconds, you know, they're programmed to clap at a different rate so that the seconds will sync up there from down here. So when they're making calculations about, you know, turn left on Peachtree, you know, and they're like telling you how long it's going to be. I mean, again, it could be negligible, but if all of them were always off all the time, the difference would actually accrue. Yeah. Right. It wouldn't just be a little off all the time. It would be a little off all the time, and that difference would add. Yeah. So something as not simple, but something as practical in the everyday interactions. You know, most people use a GPS to get around these days, so that's one everyone's familiar with.
It makes me think of the stories we were exchanging after the last podcast, and it was like you're only kind of wrong. Like, you know, it's less false. Like the Earth is. Oh, right. Yeah, saying like the Earth is a sphere. It's like less false than saying it's flat, but it's actually, you know, like a. Neil deGrasse Tyson goes into that with, I think, one of his I don't remember which book it is, but he's talking about, he's like, yeah, as you go on and on, he's like, you can't actually define it. It's like, if you wanted to define it, and he goes on like only in a way Neil deGrasse Tyson can, like, it's like a paragraph long name. He's like, it's an oblong spheroid, like dipolar, antipodal, and it's like going on and on and on. And he's like, it's a shape that only a supercomputer can know and love. But it's like you're less wrong. It's like the Earth isn't a sphere. Like that is wrong, but it's a lot less wrong than saying the world is flat. And it kind of makes me think of like how it like builds. Oh yeah, what was it, like the 0.0000001? It's like when you look at it that way, it's like to them they were right in that it's out to however many zeros. The world is
pretty flat.
Yeah, it's pretty flat. It's only once you get to that get to the end, and then you find that thing and blow it up, and it's okay. Well, that's what causes it to be. It's 24,000 miles across, and that now it can be a sphere. That makes me think of like time is like it seems like this immutable constant because we live in that zero. Yeah, we live in that 0.00. But really, it's like it's as much as a thing as like space. Like shit changes. Just like gravity's not the same everywhere. Like, you know, you look at like a gravitational map, it's different all over the fucking world. You start to realize, like, for all intents and purposes, like time is like our rules work for it, like within our lives. But across like the scale of the cosmos, like it very quickly, once you blow up, just like that flat Earth 0.000, once you start zooming out to the size of like superclusters, that negligible thing turns into like, no, dude, it changes everything.
Yeah, and wasn't it a trip, right? He kind of does a back of the envelope calculation where he talks about how your time is like a bubble around you.
Yeah.
Right, where you can kind of, in any meaningful way, say something is happening at the same time, or what's the limit to what is even practical to have your own feelers out there, not even just as a human, but actually in practice. And he gets to it. He's like, it's about the size of the Earth. So basically, like, it's the perfect trick, right? Like, whatever you thought was true on the Earth was literally because that's about the proportion, distance, and everything, the amount of space and time that makes sense, where it's all, you know, accurate and consistent. Anywhere outside of that, even if you can fathom it, is gonna change.
And it is.
And that article it was so interesting that you shared that one, because I've loved that one for so long, and yours was so great too. Asimov, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, this guy's just on fire, because I've been preaching that flat Earth shit as fire for a while, and yours was absolutely great too, and was closer to what we had been talking about. So I was like, dude, this guy's just on point. I gotta just read more Asimov.
Yeah.
But I love that, because it's exactly like you say. It shows that science, and then also just ignorance in general, is a lot more like whittling away misunderstanding than claiming you have the final solution, true, pure answer, right? And I think if people adopted that in science and in their understanding of science and their feelings towards science, and just in general for every new piece of information they stumble across, don't just attach to it like, oh, this is it, now this is right, and then you're just so blind to anything else. It's just like, no, this is a smarter way of looking at it, right? I've sort of removed ignorance rather than claim that I know the shiny gold star of the truth, right?
I'm less wrong. This answer is less wrong. Like, this girl is less unperfect for me, in that she is like, no one ever, maybe somewhere in the annals of history there's been a perfect couple, but for the most part everyone still argues. But you can find someone who is more perfect for you than anyone else. But it's one thing it made me think of was is like the anthropomorphic principle. It's like, I remember reading a lot in high school, and I think bless him, I think Father Lopez would always bring that up. Like, you know, like, if the size of a proton was off by like a trillionth of a meter, we wouldn't exist. And it's like, well, life can only evolve and become sentient in this world, and so of course it's gonna think this is all perfect for me. And it's, you know, it's apples don't grow where people drink cider where apples grow. That it's Ravelli nailed it perfectly with that. It's very much so like, you got to be careful, and like, this is the human universe. If the decay of a deuterium atom was off by this much, and it's like, no, we exist because of that. It didn't make it for us. But it would be about the size of the Earth. Like, if your sister went to Proxima Centauri, or
that part, dude.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
Part's crazy.
That's one thing I've always thought of.
And it's like 7 years, and she's back on Earth, and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, but it is. It starts to. It's, for all intents and purposes, for all practical purposes, our Earth bubble works for Earth life, and it's like, and it's just kind of like, I guess if you want to be an explorer, or not, that's actually a terrible example, but fuck it, well, I'll just bend it a little. If you want to be an explorer, that 0.00 flat Earth thing kind of works, not when you're sailing and need latitude and longitude, but in terms of just like, you're going one direction to like the next tribe over, that works fine. When you need to, it almost goes hand in hand. Once you get the ability to go out to those zeros a couple more and find out the Earth is spherical, it's like, it's almost like level up. Well, now you're in a society where we have things where there's a purpose to the world being spherical. It doesn't matter if you know the world's spherical and it's 1100. Like, okay, yeah, if you go there, you will go around, but it doesn't mean anything really. Versus now, when it's like line of sight, ICBM, 747s, GPS, it's like, now it has a practical purpose. It's almost like we're going to learn to incorporate these deviations in our bubble of time when we level up and, you know, go to Mars, go to Proxima Centauri. So yeah, there's these little, it's for all intent, it's like in genetics in college. I remember like intro to genetics. So you like start with, he's like, everything I'm going to teach you is wrong, but for all intents and purposes, it's going to be correct. So you start with just like your basic, like, here's mom, you know, big A, little a, hereditary. And as you go more, you whittle in over the courses over the years, you start to realize just how like wrong, like, was it Gregor Mendel? Like he was. It's like you go in, you learn all these weird things. You're like, oh, it's completely wrong, but for all intents and purposes, it's accurate. What do you? I can hear your dry erase board. What do you?
I was squeaking, dude. I have so many thoughts, because my brain, my neurons are just firing because I don't get to talk about stuff like this. So I kept thinking of different things. I was like, no, like remember the one. So I started writing some stuff down.
That's why I have.
You got the same thing over there.
Well, because for episodes and episodes, I would just interrupt people. So now I keep a pen or a pencil and paper next to me so I can fucking write shit down.
Let me say all of them briefly, or try to, and then if you want to just tangent off on any of the ones that I mentioned. So one, going back to the Earth, and because Neil deGrasse Tyson was the one who explained this to me, not personally, obviously, was that you would think, say you wanted to have the, I guess, the least amount of gravity. So you'd be trying to get furthest away from the Earth, but still on Earth. So you would think about, making the distance from you to the center of the Earth the largest distance. So most people would assume you'd go up somewhere really high, like climb a mountain, like Ravelli's talking about, right? And it's true that would work in some ways, right? But it's all about that sea level relative to what? He kind of goes into this. So actually, there's a science, like a base or a research center that's dedicated to doing this, that for whatever they're testing, the instruments work better if they're farther away. It's actually built on the equator. So like just good old fucking regular equator, because the Earth is so puffy in that direction, right? Because the Earth is kind of fat in that direction. If you're on a mountain up near its shoulders, you're actually closer to the center than if you're just right on the center, but on the equator. So that's just a trip of exactly what you were speaking about, different gravity, different places, different shapes. Let's see, what else did I write down? Specifically, again, with that, I drew a little chart here. You'll see this in some science books. So we've got in purple, I don't even know exactly what I'm graphing either, but like you'll just have to trust me that it's something relevant, right?
Who cares?
It's Newton's laws, right? And then Einstein's laws in the orange. So it's exactly what we're saying, that Einstein, the reason why it was so good, even maybe better than some of these biological things where they teach you one model and it's sort of like an approximation and then they change it around later. It is kind of like that with Einstein and Newton, but it's literally a genuine generalization. It's not just the same results but better explained. It's almost exactly the same at low energy levels. So you see this cutoff line was supposed to be like our human perception. I remember seeing that goofy movie Around the World in 80 Days, that Jackie Chan movie, and the whole thing in that movie was like, back then, maybe in the 1800s, they didn't think you could exceed 50 miles an hour, right? This was like this fake earthly speed limit with like a locomotive, or they don't even think they had cars yet. So if you don't go 50 miles an hour, it looks like they're basically the same, and they are basically the same. Only when you go much faster or you have much heavier speeds does this shape of the orange curve, Einstein's theory, actually start predicting not just little differences, but big differences, but you'll just never see that. So that's exactly what we're saying with whittling the ignorance. Then I thought about what you were saying with the perception bubble. I was listening to a podcast recently about evolution, and it was saying that the times where we stepped out of the ocean as fish, right? When the fish were able to come on land, maybe dolphins would be better. That really is when the birth of imagination had to happen, because for fish, they see, say, maybe 10 meters at most out in front of them if the water's clear, but they can move like several meters per second. Fish are fucking fast. So the amount of time they have to like ever deal with anything is on the order of like seconds. Like if you see something as a fish, it's
here
now.
It's here now. Okay.
But then on Earth, it was almost infinite. You could see kilometers. So you have time to like contemplate your next move, right? Just because you saw something doesn't mean it was fucking with you at that exact moment. So just that idea was such a trip for me yesterday. I was like, dude, that's so true. Like, something being just the attenuation of light. I think that's the right word. Just the way that light travels in water versus air. That was all it was, right? If we had thicker air, maybe we wouldn't be as imaginative. It was just that distinct difference between water and air, where we see something like 10 miles away and we're like, dude, we had a plan for this. Right? The fish aren't planning.
I wonder if you could somehow like find if people have greater imaginations and like air, like clearer air. Like
exactly right,
less
like a planet
pollution,
where it's
less
clear,
pollution.
they can see even
Not even
further,
that. I was just thinking like Tibet or something. Like you could just see. Maybe that's why they're all fucking monks, man. Because they can see forever. They're just versus like you get a bunch of people in New York where your line of sight is just to the next skyscraper, and it's maybe that's why everyone's got their head down or such assholes. You can't imagine. Like it's obviously it's a simple or generalization, but.
No, that's like a stand-up bit of turning it into a bit, right?
But if you isolated,
that's true.
But if you isolated that and left them there for like millions of years, I wonder if you could get a deviation and just people in Tibet, just where you could just look hundreds of miles, and like maybe people in like some like basin, you know, like a Mexico City or something. Like Mexico City in a basin, or LA? I don't know, somewhere where smog sits, like.
I mean, even with the stars, this is a factor, right? Being able to look up and contemplate those stars at night, right? A clear sky, that's a fucking perspective shift, you know, thinking about that. That's definitely going to make you smarter versus never seeing the stars, never having to think about that ever, right?
Rogan talks about that.
Yeah, Rogan loves that example. But even this is kind of that example to a T, right? It's sort of like honing in on it a little more specifically, right? He's just saying, well, the fucking stars, which is true. But the idea of seeing further. And it also makes me think, though, for dolphins, because I always say this to people with dolphins to see if I can kind of catch them in an evolutionary confusion. I'm like, the dolphins, right? They came out of the water, they went fucking back in the water. And I'm always like seeing if people are like understanding what I'm saying. It's like they breathe air, right? Dolphins breathe air. Dolphins are whales. That means the fish came out, evolved enough to breathe air, and they're like, fuck this, we're going back. We're going back in the water.
Maybe they see something.
And so that's so weird to me. Like they had enough time to get smart, maybe. Like they were out enough to we all have a common ancestor, some sort of like rodent creature maybe. And then they were just like, nah, dude, like it was chill in the water, we're going back.
Maybe that's why they're so smart, is they get like both worlds. They jump out of that dimension and into this one.
That's true too. But they're like the geniuses of the water because they're dealing with all the fucking water folk who've never been out of land.
Big fish in a little pond. Maybe they're just like, fuck it, I got it good. Why go to Wall Street and be some pencil pusher when I can be the smartest guy in my town? Like, you know, just run a train on these idiots. Exactly. Yeah, but it be
like an athlete, like a genius athlete of the ocean.
Just never leave your town. Yeah. No, but it makes me think because my family has a lake house way up north, and it's, I mean, dude, it is hundreds of miles from any like major population area. But you go out and you look up at night, man, and it's one of those things where it's like having grown up in like suburban Atlanta versus here. Dude, you go out and it's one of the things where like you kind of get vertigo because you look up and you stop and be like, oh, it's not just like the stars, like, hey, there's the Little Dipper. It's like you get the sense of, like Ravelli talks about it, he's like when your eyes tell you that the sun is going over the horizon, but your mind's eye tells you that the whole world is actually spinning backwards, and you get that whoa. Up there, when you look at the stars, it's not just like, oh, there are the stars, look at them twinkle. It's like you start to get the sensation of, oh, whoa, there's that star is closer than that star, and you're like, oh, this isn't a flat image. You're like, this is depth. When you like look out at like skyscrapers all away, you're not just like, there are the skyscrapers. It's like that one's across the block, that one's at the other end of Manhattan Island. Up there, the stars are so clear that you start to get this like tilt shift, almost like parallax perspective. You're like, oh, whoa. You're like, it almost feels like, the way I used to describe it to my ex-girlfriend is like, you know, when the plane first takes off and it's like, ooh, you feel it in your stomach and it's ooh, but you know, then you take a nap and you wake up and it's 2 hours in and everyone's sleeping and you get up and you go down the aisle, you gotta go to the bathroom, and you're not really thinking about the fact that you're flying. It's just you feel like
really fucking fast.
Yeah, you're just like, I go to the bathroom. You don't ever think about the fact that the Earth isn't sitting on anything, and once you start to think about it, you can kind of get that feeling of like, if you really think about it right now, the Earth isn't actually sitting on anything. I kind of get that like wobbly feeling, like, oh, okay, it's like we're stuck. It's like our feet are velcroed to the ground by gravity, but really there is no up or down. So I wonder if that did used to have something to do with like the mind. Like, what about before light pollution? And every night, maybe that led to like, who knows? Maybe that's what led to light pollution. As you saw the sky less and less, you got more caught up in your everyday life, and then you searched for material pleasures and in advancements.
It's like a runaway.
Yeah, versus like if you're out in the middle of the field and you look up and every night you're faced with the fact that you're sitting in an infinite soup of insanity, maybe you're less inclined to be like, we got to build the next iPad, and you're just like, I don't know, like, like make love and make religion and eat mushrooms. Maybe it's just simple. It's like they're both runaways. It's looking up and seeing infinite every night. It's almost, yeah, it's like if you trip on LSD every night, you'd probably be a lot less like, I gotta move to this city and get this raise, you know? You're just like,
could never be like that.
Maybe that's
I love that Ravelli mentions that too, right? That he mentions tripping out.
He's like take
one line.
He's like, it's one towards the end. He's like, take your gram of mushrooms by yourself, and reality will dissolve and put itself back together. And it's like, I see you, Ravelli. I see you.
I love this guy too. I don't know why, other than his accent is very thick, why he wouldn't have read it. Although I do fuck with Benedict Cumberbatch, but you should listen to him speak as well, because he's even the way he comes across in writing, he speaks that way too. It's fucking unbelievable, and he's so Italian. Yeah, he sounds amazing to me. Like, I think he sounds awesome as fuck. Yeah. So I would have liked to have heard him speak a book, but there really might be some moments. Oh, I actually know a word one time. I can almost remember. He said some animal so fucking funny. You know when someone, like when a British person says like advertisement, instead of advertisement, like advertisement. Yeah. He said some animal, and it was so weird, and I thought it was hilarious. But that must be the only reason I can think of that he wouldn't have read it. Yeah,
advertisement, or like aluminium, or a Mercedes.
A Mercedes, all these things.
Yeah, a Mercedes Benz, a Mercedes. Yeah. So I interrupted you, and you were going on your list of.
No, shit. I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Well, I was gonna say. Yeah, so I wrote down one of them. To your first, talking about like equator versus Everest. I think it's Neil deGrasse. It's one of the fucking smart guys. But they said if you actually were to like shrink the Earth down to the size of like a cue ball, that it would that the Earth would actually feel smoother than a cue ball, and that's how.
Yes.
Minuscule
so he's trying to again harp on that being flat is not ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
It's so big that it looks lumpy. But when you zoom in on any fine surface, like this table that I'm touching right now, right, it feels smooth to my hand. But if you had an electron microscope, you would see, in fact, it's quite rough, right? Unless it's machined specifically to not be. Yeah. So that's the idea, is that even a cue ball that feels smooth in your hand has more ridges and valleys and little small things maybe than the Earth. I don't know if that's exactly accurate, but I think that's a good way of imagining it. It's probably accurate. He probably did some back of the envelope calculation. Another thing I thought of when you were talking about that, the Velcro to the Earth. This was one of the trippiest things I learned in physics. What there's called in physics is like, the fundamental forces. So like
gravity,
electromagnetism, the strong force and the weak force. But then there's also forces that you'll put into your equations that are called pseudo forces, meaning we don't believe them, they don't exist in any abstract sense, but you can feel them from where you are. So it goes back to what we talked about last time we talked with the inertial frame. So if you're in a car and it's turning, right, you'll do that thing when you're in the back seat where you lean against your friend. Yeah. Right. So there's no like wind or gravity pulling you that way. It's that you're trying to attach yourself to the frame of the car, but the car is changing, but you're looking outside, right? And the car's changing direction. So you have this pseudo force, which is that response to changing inertial frames. And when you have something on the Earth, like a baseball, let's say, there's a force, a pseudo force called the Coriolis effect, or the Coriolis force, which depending on your I'm going to fuck it up now, longitude or latitude, basically how north you are or how south you are, how far you are from the equator, the Earth spins underneath you at a different rate, right? So if you throw a baseball, it's sort of out in space for a second. The Earth is not attached to it. As it comes back down, it's still rotating with the Earth in the same way that throwing a baseball at a moving car, the baseball is moving faster. But when you throw it on the Earth, it's not quite as good as that, right? It's still spinning with the rotation of the Earth, but not quite, because it's not the thing that's spinning. So the Earth can actually move on, sort of slip under it a little bit, right?
Do you remember that?
And I did this calculation. I remember in college. I think it was like if you throw it from the outfield, right? If a guy at the wall of a baseball catches a fly ball, right, and throws it like 300 feet to home plate, the Coriolis effect, and somehow it stayed in the air. He's got a fucking cannon, this Bryce Harper motherfucker. He throws it from the outfield, and the deviation, I think, is something on the order of an inch, or even less than an inch, maybe like a tenth of an inch. difference that the ball would be in if it did. So again, very negligible, but you can derive it. I actually know how to derive it. A personal thing that I love to know how to do is like make it come out of the equations, and just so trippy that one when I first learned about it.
Yeah, I remember the first time I'd ever heard the term Coriolis effect was playing Modern Warfare 1. They
talk about snipers or something?
At JP's house. It's one of the episodes, and you're trying to get whatever, it's Zarnev or whatever. You're really far away, and you're in like the Ukraine, and you're on some like apartment top, and yeah, you're like, you know, you're like a half a kilometer away, and he's like, don't forget to take into effect the Coriolis effect. And it's because you got to think what you just said. It's only an inch. Baseball doesn't really matter. When you're doing some
you'll catch it, right?
Yeah, when you're doing some Black Ops denied or plausible deniability shit, and you got to put a 50 cal round through someone's head, 1 inch matters, and that's what happens in the game. Is you end up hitting his arm, not his head. But yeah, so the Coriolis effect, in a sense, yeah, it does exist. Do they set you up for that? Is it one of those annoying game things where? Yeah, I don't think you can. Even if you aim at his head, like the game makes you miss. Yeah, it's some bullshit. Yeah, it's no like matter what. Scene, right? Yeah, it's like Grand Theft Auto 5. No matter what, you always end up hitting the same spot, and it's fuck that. You aim like way off to the right. Yeah, like, I know this trick, bitch. And as long as you fire in the hitbox, and Black Ops 2, you can actually. Yeah, you can actually aim and hit him in the leg instead of the head, and it actually does. There's like alternate endings because of that. But that's cool. Yeah, it is cool. But fuck, I don't know how we got onto negligible effects, Velcro. Is that what we were talking about? Negligible effects, Velcro to the earth. That's something you had said. Yeah, I remember thinking about that. It was one night in Athens. I remember it was like fall 2012, and I remember everyone had left for the South Carolina game. So whenever October 2012, UGA must have been away. I remember I stayed home because I had to like test that whole week, and I was just burned out. And the last thing I wanted to do was like go drink and like sleep on someone's futon in like some other town. I was like, I just want to stay home. And point to all that was, so I remember I got like a ton of weed and just got like high as fuck, and I laid in my bed, and I ended up like opening the windows, just looking up at the stars, and I was thinking like there is no up or down, and it was like I'm stuck to this thing, like this earth, and it was literally like it's like static electricity almost. It's like I'm stuck to this thing. It's like it is static. That's all it is like I'm just being pulled towards it, and it's, you know, it's almost like the climbing the building with the suction cups, like some Mission Impossible shit. It's like we don't think anything of it, but it's like we're just stuck to this earth. Like we orient ourselves so that our feet are down and we're walking around, but really it's like, dude, we're all just like, it really is like almost like it's like a magnet. Like it's just nope, pull it away, it's whoosh, everything pulls back down. But it's just like how weird that is. Like we don't see it because of the atmosphere, but in reality, like we are on this like ship in the middle of space, and instead of having tethers tied to everyone like on the ISS, instead we just like our failsafe is this like electro, and again gravitational, but again it's like everyone's just stuck to it. That's why you don't float away from the ship. But it's, I remember that just kind of like blew my mind. You were talking about with imagination. Yeah, is there's a line from David Foster Wallace to hit me with it. Infinite Jest. Yeah, it's from my favorite DJ, Akira the Don. He like puts it to some music, but he's like two fish graduate like Fish College, and they're like walking down like the sidewalk with their diplomas and their caps or whatever, and they're just walking along, you know, what's next in life, got the whole life ahead of them, and an older fish is swimming the opposite way, and he smiles and nods at and he goes, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the other two fish just keeps, you know, "Thank you, sir, how you doing?" And finally, after about 20 yards, one of them looks at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" And I remember when I heard that, I was just like, it's one of those like lines you hear in life that just kind of completely alters. And I just, so what is our water? What is the thing that we're not? And I don't mean in a physical sense, like we don't feel like the spinning of the earth. We don't. Why is it blurry when the fuck? I thought you had like a green screen, right? It's just your flag. Oh, what the fuck? You kind of look like you're in a blurry, but it looks weird on your, or it doesn't look weird rather on your face, but around you. Yeah, it's almost like you're hammered. Trey, wake up, bro. But it's kind of like hammered vision. Yeah, huh? But beer goggles. Yeah, but that's one thing I always think of. It's like what is our water, and not you can't feel the spinning of the Earth at 1,000, or you don't feel like that. However many pounds of pressure there is with the atmosphere.
I think it's everything, right? That's why that book is so mind-blowing, because he doesn't do it like 3 times in the book. He does it like 10 times in the book, right? He just keeps on hitting you fucking water after water. It's like, oh, you thought I explained everything that was mind-blowing? Check this out. And he just keeps on one-upping himself.
Ravelli or
yeah, Ravelli.
I was going to say, because I haven't read that book. I haven't actually read David Foster Wallace. I need to. I'm a fraud. But yeah, it's
no worries.
One thing he talks about that I'm glad he talked about is because I'd always been obsessed with all like the Planck definitions, because I was just like, man, this is the motherfucker that just went in and like named everything after himself and got all the extremes. He just went in and was like, I'm gonna get. It's like, isn't it something like if Earth was the size of a hydrogen atom, that Planck's space would be the size of the slits in a screen door? It's something
it's
like
so much smaller than small that you can't even fucking wrap your head around it.
Yeah, it's like an atom is like closer to like us in relativity than like an atom is to Planck space. But there's Planck space and I think foam. But one of them is I remember Planck time, and I remember looking that up in college one time. I always would do this shit when I would get stoned, but I remember it's like it's the amount of time it takes for the speed of light to cross over Planck space, right?
That's right. So I don't actually know Planck deserves the credit for that one, but he already had Planck length, right? So Planck length is the
10 to the negative
shortest possible distance. Then the shortest possible time has to be the amount of time it takes the fastest possible thing to move the shortest possible distance. And that's what most people don't think of. If you think of time as this infinitely normalized across the board uniform thing, then you wouldn't think of that definition immediately. But when you read Ravelli or you dig into it, any amount of time still has to be measuring a process, right? Time isn't just there on the table. It's the amount of time. It's like elapsed time. If there's no elapsed time, then nothing happened, right? You can't just ask the magical outside the universe clock, right? And so that's why they say photons don't experience time, right? If you don't have mass and you're moving the speed of light, you literally don't have time, because nothing is moving in a way relative to you, right? You're moving at the fastest speed. So I don't know if Planck actually was there for that, but it was the natural name. He probably, I'm sure, had to do with the Planck length.
Yeah.
And then the Planck time followed. And Ravelli's obsessed with that, right? That's why his whole career has been built around his understanding those tiny, tiny scales.
Because it seems like that's like the flat Earth, the 0.000. Well, what happens when you do go to that end? Or like Asimov, what happens when the last star burns out? Well, that's, a trillion years away. But it will get here eventually. So what happens? And it's, you got to go out to that area.
But I was tripping out because straight up, that's what I was like trying to not I wasn't trying to say it like in terms of actually delivering, but I was thinking about it, and I said it a little bit, which is that's literally what Penrose thinks. And the fact that I don't know when Asimov wrote that, but I'm sure it was before Penrose. And then now Penrose is basically saying like that's true, but using data and like scientific method was just tripping me out. I can't believe that's basically what he's saying, is that the big bang of one is the last breath of another. And not that it goes in a circle, like it's not some fairy fucking tale land where you're going to be born again.
Yeah.
It's just the next eon. It's the and he calls them eons. So instead of universe, he has this thing where your entire space-time universe from beginning to end. And it has to do with the entropy, which Ravelli gets into, everything getting really cold and spread out. And something about the entropy of the early universe being low, and we don't know why that's true. So there's all these questions that Penrose actually has tackled. So that was such a trip that Asimov could see something like that as a possibility and write about it in fiction. And then, he's sort of tying it into like artificial intelligence and whatnot. So it's definitely science fiction. But then the fact that maybe now we have a genius scientist, Penrose, proposing that actually this could be right, and actually going into detail. It was fucking crazy.
Yeah, I like to think of it as like, I never thought about that, how he's like the only thing that you can define like something going back and forth is like the dissipation of heat. He's like, that's the only like.
That's it.
I never thought about that. Of course, I wouldn't think about that.
The only irreversible physical process, right? Just shit moving around, billiard balls. Play it backwards, play it forwards, looks the same. You can't tell if they're rolling the right way because But eventually you can. That's the other tricky part, right? If you saw
it slow down,
just start rolling, you would know it was fake, because when it's slowing down, it's dissipating energy from friction. So as it stops, it's slightly warming itself up. It's warming up the felt of the table. There's air resistance. It's warming up the air. So if a ball just started rolling in a movie, you would know it was fake, because that's the moment where the transfer of heat is the greatest, when it stops it.
Yeah.
If it was just a movie of it moving left or right, or a collision going this way or a collision going that way, then not much heat is being lost, and you wouldn't be able to see the difference. So fucking crazy that he just takes away the past, future, and present by explaining it away with entropy, right?
Yeah.
And the thing about the cards, I love the analogy with the cards, that we think of it as like the cards were brand new, so they were unshuffled and now they're shuffling. But what's to say that specific configuration is not a specific configuration, because it is, right? It's just one of the, you could calculate how many possible configurations, and that's what Penrose's theory is sort of all about, that the last state, I don't know, like if you shuffle it forever, eventually you'll shuffle it back or something crazy, is one way of kind of saying it. But the last state, with everything gone, all the stars exploded, all the black holes absorbed everything around them, only light flying around, is what's resembling the initial state pre-Big Bang. So it's just like, damn, dude, like, such a mind fuck.
I like how he says it, though. He's like, it might not necessarily be like a special like state. He was like, it might just be special in our state of, like, you know, you and I see 4 aces in a row and it's hot damn, you know, you get your chips. But in terms of just like the universe is indifferent to which card comes up. It's just, that's another state. We give value to it. If you get the lottery numbers, those have value because we've all determined that this is the winning combination. But in terms of just numbers, they're just numbers. Like, we say, oh, this is 0 and that's 10 and 5 is in the middle. But reality, it's like, there are 10 of them. They're all different orders. It doesn't matter. So maybe this whole idea of like, entropy and this and there is order, it's like, that's just how we're perceiving it. Just like, you know, that they drink cider where apples grow. It's like, we just see order, but it's not
the ultimate,
real.
The universe gives no fucks.
It's the ultimate
version
like
of that.
Yeah, it's the ultimate like pat on the head, like, yeah, buddy, nope, there's nothing going on. It doesn't care. That's one thing I've thought about is like, what?
Well, I was going to say, in along those lines, even what you had said earlier with Father Lopez and anthropic principle, one of the other things I wrote down was some scientists now believe that the universe itself is sort of evolving. So there could be universes that fail in some sense. And that the fundamental quantities, like the constants, the Planck length and the gravitational constant and the electro, you know, the value of the electric charge, these constants are evolving, and the ones that aren't successful, those universes go away. So that makes that argument even stupider. It's like saying, oh, like, we're smart, so like clearly a creator made us smart because we're the smartest animal. It's like, you're saying that as the smartest animal, it's like too circular, right? It doesn't explain cause and effect. It's exactly the apple cider apples thing.
I think, have you ever seen, who's this? I think Morgan Freeman narrates it, Into the Wormhole.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Dude. I think they do like an animation on there about like multiverse and like universes spawning other universes. He's like, just like when you learn what evolution actually is, and you go, oh, it's like that one has the most kids because that giraffe could reach the apples and it had a longer neck.
It's so simple, right?
So it has, and then there's one of them just through like, once you understand genetics, now it's an imperfect replication. Eventually there will be mutations, and one of them might get a little taller, and it's or beak and the finch, which one has the stronger beak, and then that one just happens more, and you're like, it's like, why do certain memes spread on Reddit and others don't? Because they're funny, and so we all share them. But why wouldn't it happen with universes? You have these ones that spawn, but then you have to think, well, but what qualifies it as a successful universe?
I think shit just staying together and not like eating itself, right? Either the universe expands too fast,
like physically, like or
yeah, I mean, that is a good point. Like, why would the humans being in the universe make it successful or not? Is there some sort of self-interaction with the universe?
That's what I was going to say.
I think the argument, the one they try to make, is that it's actually the same as regular evolution. That it's this dissipation of energy. It's this transfer of entropy. So if there's like people building things, not specifically people, but just there's processes, processes that convert energy from one form into the other and dissipate the heat faster or more uniformly, or I don't know exactly the technical word, but that's what they would be selecting for. That,
but it have to, why is that selective? You have to think in like what greater. That's what I was thinking, is like, because if everything would just be like tied within like the space-time horizon of the universe, so it's almost like you could imagine they'd be like bulletproof bubbles or something. Everything exists within the bubble. You couldn't punch out. There'd have to be some sort of human interaction. It'd be like
something going on in there.
The civilization becomes conscious. What's Ray Kurzweil think? He's eventually we will turn all matter into computers, the smallest possible, which would be like a subatomic or quantum computer, and then what would we do? We'd expand throughout the whole universe to turn the whole thing into a computer, and that would be the universe waking up. Maybe the universe wakes up and it somehow has the ability, once it's reached, it can only achieve it once it's reached maximum intelligence, and maximum intelligence is when the smallest units of matter have been turned into the most efficient computer components. Maybe once you hit that, it's almost like Asimov's like Let There Be Light. You hit a point where only once you have that intelligence you can stop the shrinking of like the walls of like the universe back down. And then once you have trillions of universes, like a handful of them will survive. You know, it's like why do you only get a percentage of people that make the cut of Delta selection? Some survive. Those are the good ones, right? Those are the maybe that's what it is. You can, because that's what I think it would have to be. There'd have to be some sort of like interaction. It'd be, because otherwise wouldn't it just maybe it just exists beyond like our comprehension. We can't. We're like, what is the thing?
These guys are really trying to quantify it, like legitimately. Like this theory has, I don't know if it has strong legs under it, I would say, but people are taking it really seriously that that's a thing. That there's this and even they extend it to where even in our universe maybe shit changes far away. So one of Einstein's principles was that locally the rules are the same as they are really far away. So even evolution within the one space-time, not just all the space-time. Some people are trying to put that forward as an idea that we have no evidence to say that the fundamental constants are the same right here as they are 3 trillion light years away. Like, how the fuck would we possibly know that? So
it's like isn't the speed of sound different at like sea level than it is in like, I'm pretty sure Mach is. If you look it up,
Mach's different.
They always say,
I mean, it depends on the air, right? So the air thickness, the density of the air could totally affect it.
I'm gonna put down the timestamp. I gotta go piss. I'll cut this part out. Look that up real quick, or if you want. You don't have to. I don't know why the fuck I'm telling you. Hey Trey, you got homework. Do whatever.
Jamie, look that shit up.
I interrupt, if you can't tell. I interrupt a lot when I'm speaking. You gotta put your dick in my mouth. Bro. You just gotta fight back and be like, I don't care.
I feel the same way.
I'm gonna put down this timestamp and all right, and Beth and break over. So,
all right, you ready for me to drop this knowledge?
Yeah. Go.
It's something I already should have known, right? But just the numbers are so different that it's pretty mind-blowing, right? So the speed of sound is 343 meters per second in the air. So really fucking fast, 343 meters per second. It's 1,480 meters per second in water.
Yeah, but even...
Right, so that's a better way of thinking about it, than the medium itself changing it. And I think I even remember back when I was fishing that somehow, I don't know if this is an urban legend, but my dad would claim that the sound over the water had a slight distance to it, like over ground, maybe some of them hit the ground and die out, but over the water, maybe they were bouncing or something, staying.
No, there is something that I can know from my own experience, and all my family up in New Hampshire always say, if the lake is like quiet, and you're sitting on your like, our front porch is like 200 feet from the shore, but if you get up there, and it's not just because it's quiet and you're in the middle of nowhere. It's when there's someone on like a kayak out in the middle of the lake, you can, I swear to God, you can hear people talking, and they'll be like 1,000 yards in front of you, and you'll hear like distinct words like, no hunting and beer, and we're having the fish, and it's the weird. But they always say, because sometimes you go in front of other lake houses, and I remember like as you remember, as like earliest memories, like my whole life being up there on lakes, they'd always be like, you know, keep your voice down, because like they can hear what you're saying, so don't be like, oh, look at that fucking ugly house. It's like they can hear, because they'd all just be like pissed drunk, so they'd be like, shh, you know, because it does travel. It's, I don't know what the explanation of that would be. Yeah, maybe less of the sound waves are hitting like a choppy ground. It's because that's what you do in studios, right? You have those like super choppy walls. So wouldn't the inverse be like a glass lake?
To absorb it.
Yeah. So the inverse would be...
if it was a flat lake, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, versus like a choppy lake. But so if sound is different at different levels, because they'll say like, you know, it was going Mach 3 at sea level versus Mach 3 at 150,000 feet. If there is a different like relative speed, why wouldn't there... Why, as one thing I've always thought is like, back to the flat Earth thing, like the 0.000, for all intents and purposes, it's flat. For all intents and purposes, we have our like Coulomb's law, or like the number of volts in this, or 607 or 186,000 miles a second, or 760 miles an hour, or other things that we're just like, this is 9.81 meters per second. It's these things that we're like, yeah, it's true, because for all intents and purposes, it is true. But seeing as how we're dealing with a universe that should be trillions of light years across, well, what happens when you take that 10th decimal place and say, well, it only changes then? Well, what happens when you can actually go that far and be like, well, now this 10th decimal place, now that's a billion light years like slot of space-time. What if just general law is like, literally, like gravity is not just like, obviously there's a different gravitational speed, or I guess not speed, value. We know that on different planets, Moon versus Jupiter versus, but no, like what if like the actual thing used, because those are all calculated based on, it's like, it's whatever the equation is. Yeah, capital G, and you got the distance between the core and the amount of stuff between you. But what if that, what if that capital G, what if that constant is different in the fucking 9 superclusters over, right?
I know.
What if it's not the same? And
I think they can see so far that
it seems
they're
like
able to at least think that if it is small, it's like what you're saying, that it's negligible. But I like how you were saying it. I mean, because it's exactly what the picture I was drawing, that just a small error accrues over time. So just because something doesn't seem to have an effect, you haven't haven't performed the experiment to see the effect, right? So it's not a valid way of ruling it out, but it does simplify things if you just assume it's all the same. And a lot of the experiments are so reproducible on Earth that they give you a sense of being definitely right, but it's exactly what we're saying, just exactly right in this bubble. You know,
go farther out, and it's that's, I guess the example I was about to use is more of like butterfly effect. But I guess it's the same. Change one small thing and then just extrapolate it, multiply it by a big enough value. Like a meme, you know, like the domino meme, where it's the bigger and bigger dominoes. You touch the little one. There's like some YouTube video. It's literally like 9 seconds long. It's one of those videos uploaded in like 2007. But like you push one, but he has gradually bigger dominoes. To the point where he knocks over the little one, and eventually it knocks over this like 4 foot tall, like 100-pound domino. And it's like this is the butterfly effect. And like one of them is like the smallest one is like cashier in Minneapolis going, this bill looks fake, to the George Floyd thing, to like 2 weeks later, America on fire. And it's like the butterfly effect explained. But that doesn't go with all of what I'm saying. One thing I've thought about is, do you know what the like the nuclear potato cannon is?
I don't think so. I don't think I've heard of that. I know what a potato cannon is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's in the Nevada test site. We used to, as well as doing like surface and air tests, we'd actually just bury nukes, and that's how we get our tests. And we always put them at the bottom of these huge holes. I think one time though, they, for whatever reason, they had this like one hole that was supposed to vent air. I know I'm butchering it, but they put like the equivalent of like a manhole lid over it, because it was thought that it would be so negligible. I don't even know what the purpose was. Maybe it was literally just so some dumb worker doesn't fall in this like 600-foot hole. But something went off with the test where like all of the energy of this nuke pushed all the air out of this hole, so it turned into a nuclear potato cannon, and it shot this thing. And the defense contractor EG&G, Edgerson, Germeshausen, and Greer, it's one of like the darkest, shadiest contractors. But all the way back to the Manhattan Project, we always used them to. We always had just use one company to actually record the tests, because they could do like the 100,000 frame per second like videos back in like the 40s. But we were like, this is such classified shit, we can't have other people recording this, so we just got buddy with them. Bob Lazar claims it's EG&G that has like the UFOs out there. Anyway, but they were out there, and they were using this like hyper advanced, it might have been like 1 million frames a second or something. And so because of that, you can say anything that happens within these frames is going this fast, and if it skips a frame, it's because it's going this fast.
Right.
Well, here's this thing that we're using to literally like photograph and visualize the first not milli, but microseconds of like the X-ray flash, like the gamma ray flash, like the thermal pulse. And it shot off this this manhole cover. And they found it was only caught in like 1 frame. And so they did the math, and they said it had to have been going something like 12% the speed of light. Something fucking insane. Maybe it's 1. But it's something insane. To the point where they said that if it left Earth, then it is the fastest traveling thing man has ever created. But they think due to the speed and the surface area and thus friction, they said it had to have vaporized. And so it probably just punched out a cloud of like iron particles. But if it survived, they said it's far beyond that of Voyager. What the fuck is the point of me saying that? Oh, so what if we didn't capture that though? And we would have thought it vaporized, because we would never know. It's beyond. You take you take an image of the Earth with only so many pixels, you cannot see farther in. The pixels do not exist. So I think I texted you that, maybe I forgot to, I don't remember. There's a point to this whole rant. What if things are happening, but they're happening so fast that it's, I don't know how to like word it. It's happening like 1,000 times faster than the speed of light, but there's no way we can like, not even our instruments can capture it, because everything is based on the speed of light being the fastest thing. I don't know if I don't think I'm getting my point across.
No, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like, even just something happening around you, if it was happening so fast your eyes couldn't pick it up, how would you detect it in general? It's the same argument that like maybe trees are moving, they're just moving so slow that it doesn't seem like they're moving to you, right? That is crazy. I think they would argue that the possibility of faster than light travel would have ramifications that we would see somehow if there are things doing it, but that doesn't mean that the idea you're laying out isn't a well thought out idea that something could be going on, you know, around us, a different dimension. Some people would say that if you believe in string theory, right? You know, some invisible alien right here, right?
5th dimensional, 6th dimensional,
If you move faster than light, you can go back in time. So there's something weird with that I don't quite understand enough. But I know maybe even worse than that you can move back in time. Maybe that you have to move back in time. So there's some sort of mind fuck where if you are moving faster than say instead of a ceiling, if the speed of light was a floor, then like you'd be experiencing time in the opposite order.
Dude,
so that is fucking trippy. It would be this trippy, like, Christopher Nolan movie where, like, humans are moving forward in time, and then the aliens who move faster than light are moving backwards in time, and you, like, pass yourself in the middle, and you think the other people are, like, weird because they're moving weird, but really you're the weird one.
What if our speed of light is, like, the Planck time of another dimension, and they can't go lower than that?
Yeah, right.
And we can't go higher. Yeah, it's because that's their light speed going over their smallest possible. And they're like, their Karlover values are like, we don't know what happens below that. But to us, that's their glass floor, and it's our glass ceiling. But it's a mirror, so we can't see past it. What if that's like the separation of what if that's like the dolphin leaving the water? Like, this is our imagination is limited to existing within something with a speed limit of 186,000 miles per second. Oh, man. Yeah. Fuck yeah. Jesus, man. But yeah, or okay, so what if there wasn't even, I know we're coming up on an hour. If you need to go, let me know. I got nothing doing, so I'm done talking. All right, awesome.
I have two things even that I wanted to say.
Sure. Yeah, like I said, interrupt me. No, tell me to fuck off. Interrupt me.
Well, they're random though. I don't care where it was going. So one of them was about what we had talked about last time, because I felt like I didn't give a good explanation about it, and so I thought about it more and was able to convince myself. Where you asked about how the speed of light being a constant and being the same in any inertial reference frame, how can that work also with like redshift, things like this? So I thought about an analogy for you, which is at the beach.
Okay.
So here's Tommy at the beach, and here's Trey catching some killer waves. So if you imagine playing around with what this could look like imagine the sets are coming in, and every once in a while someone catches a wave, right? There's a few parameters that you could adjust. One of them is just if you had like a radar gun, how fast is the surfer moving towards the shore?
Okay.
So that's what we mean by the speed of light. Think of light as a wave, and by speed we mean the propagation speed of light. Okay? So again, like just think about physically on the beach, clocking the surfer's speed coming at you. Oh, he's surfing at me 15 miles per hour. Okay? But there's another thing that you could change, which kind of feels like speed, which we would call the frequency of the waves. That has nothing to do with the propagation speed, though. That would be like, instead of set, if it was like set. So if I catch any of these waves, I'm still going to be surfing at you 15 miles an hour, but there's more waves coming. That's the shift in the light. The shift is, that's what the shift is the frequency of the waves. Of course, another parameter we could play with would be the size of the wave. That would be the amplitude of the wave, and that would be the intensity of the light. So you have to somehow try to keep those three things. They all kind of feel like the same thing, like how fast it is, how bright it is, the frequency of it. They all feel, and they are all related to the amount of energy it carries, right? But they're actually three sort of distinct concepts. And then to finally drive it home, if instead of the ocean, where you're imagining kind of infinite amount of water to play with, if you imagine like a wave tank, so the amount of water is fixed, right? So there's like 10,000 gallons in this pool and no more, no less. Then it would be impossible to make the waves come faster. So here's a wave, this 15 miles an hour. It would be impossible to make them move faster and also come more frequently at the same time. Yeah. Right? Because the amount of water is fixed. So you would have a choice. You could either make them come faster at the shore, and then you would just have to do it less, or you could slow them down but create more of them. Okay. And so there really is this permanent relation that can't be fucked with the light going the one speed, because light is more like the wave tank. It's not like the ocean where you can change all three of these parameters independently. If you change one, it's going to affect the others. Yeah. Jeez, science! Fuck, you're right. 1 point for Trey, 0 for Tommy. Damn it. Did that make sense? No, it did. So I saved it. Because last time I was like, dude, he's right. Like, it was fucking with me for a while. And then I had to think of another type of wave that I could get a grip on, something human scale, right? So I just wrote down something that I thought about in the shower the other day, and I meant to ask you, because apparently I think about you in the shower, because you're so beautiful. But it's a thought that's recurred to me over the years, is just like, so like seeing shit, like as I sort of learned more in college and took being pre-med, like I had to at least take the basic physics. Yeah. But even then it kind of started to like fuck with my like understanding of shit. Or as I've learned more, I realized that like I understood it less. So like seeing is like the photons, like we, when I look at you right now, granted you're not here, but if you were right here, I'm still seeing you as like, a trillionth of a second ago, or you could you could find out the actual time. But so seeing you is the photons coming at me, and I can, so you look up at the stars and you're seeing them as you're seeing the sun as it was 8 minutes ago, you're seeing the moon as it was 1.3 seconds ago, you're seeing Andromeda as it was 2 million years ago.
down to where we can go back and kind of look at early galaxies that don't even exist anymore, or stars that don't, because that's how they looked 14 billion years ago. So all that being said, what is it, the thing that we're seeing? So like photons, like that's what I'm seeing. But so the way I know I'm incorrectly visualizing it in my head is like, it's almost like I have like a little tiny photon gun on every surface of my body, and it's shooting off photons in the image of Tommy. So no matter where you are, you can see Tommy. But what is it that is leaving me? Because it's massless, correct? Or that doesn't even matter, even if it is or isn't. What is the thing that's leaving me?
Yeah, no, that's right. What you're saying.
Is it a form of decay?
It's not like emitting from you, but everything else is right. It's bouncing off of you.
Oh, okay.
So it's emitting from a source, and then it bounces off your skin. But the way you're describing the second part of what you're saying is true, that it's leaving Tommy in all directions.
Yeah.
But it's scattering off of you. It's not
so it's more like radar?
Like coming from your skin, right?
It's more like radar? It loosely, in that it's bouncing off of everything. It's not like when I see an image of a bird on a radar, it's not because the bird is giving off an image that says I am bird, here I am. It's because my thing's shooting out and it's painting this image. Like what is the source of shit bouncing?
Think about maybe a dark room with one small light source, or even a camera. I swear I've captured this with a camera in a lightning storm. You take a picture of a lightning storm, and the lightning storm maybe is like off to your left but in front of you, and in the picture the left part of the picture is lit up and the right part of the picture is dark. That in some sense has to do with your shutter speed, obviously, but that's not like purely an artifact of the camera. That's a real phenomenon, right? That the lightning would strike, and the light passes. Ability to see the light has to propagate out towards you, so someone who is closer to the lightning would see it sooner. No ifs, ands, or buts. So now, if we were really far apart and we were on the cell phone, we would agree that it happened right now. But that's just, again, going back to what we were saying earlier, the negligible difference is not perceivable, but there is one. So I think your intuition is actually there. It's just like the actual mechanism. One trippy little diagram I like to think about that I draw sometimes is, I don't know if this is completely rigorous. There might even be like something fundamentally wrong with it, but I still think it's an interesting way to understand it. Is like, say you were trying to understand this twin paradox, that if you move away really far at a high speed of light and then you come back, you know, the time is different for you as it is for them, right? More time would have gone by on Earth. You could be Tommy 5 years later, and it could be Earth 15 years later, right? I mean, just one simple way of seeing that is if you imagine a big clock on the Earth, like a Big Ben clock. It's so big that you can see it from outer space. It's like protruding from the Earth, and you can see it from outer space in your little Tommy spaceship, right? If you see that clock says, it looks like I drew 6 o'clock right now, right? But then you take off at the speed of light, the image of the clock trying to change to go to like 6 o'clock in 1 second is going to be chasing you.
At the speed of light.
Look back, if you're moving at the speed of light and the image of the clock being 6 o'clock is propagating at the speed of light, no matter what, when you look back, it's still going to be 6 o'clock, even if years have gone by. So that's like one way of thinking about it. Again, there might be some weird thing.
I like that.
Subtly wrong, because I know you have to actually come back. You have to stop and come back. If somehow you just kept traveling and you never thought back on Earth, I think it's probably explained better in Revelli, honestly, but just at least initially when I realized this, and this is one good way of thinking about how a black hole works, right? When someone falls through the event horizon, they're just gonna not experience anything at all, but to you, you're gonna see them frozen on the event horizon, right? You're gonna see them like because it's the light is. It'll decay. There's Hawking radiation. The image will slowly be fading for some specific reason. But just on a relativity level, it will be like they exist there for all time, forever, never moving, because the changes in what they're doing can never catch up to you. They're getting pulled into the black hole.
Fuck. So, one thing I used to think of is like, what if the universe, you know, can we see the edge of the universe? How big is it? Is it 14.3 billion? Isn't the other estimate? It's like it's not 14.3. It's like 193 billion. Isn't there some estimate like that they think that's how big it is? So I was thinking, like, what if we just can't see past the edge of the universe, but it's not because it's like we can't see the actual
edge.
Yeah. What if it's like full circle, no pun intended, but it's like the flat Earth thing. We just can't see past it. What if it's literally like I can't see past like the horizon, right? I can see I can see up into the sky, I can see planes, I can see behind me, but I can't see past this sliver that goes over. So what if we're just in this like sliver on the surface of, I don't know what the surface would be, but what if the whole universe is actually, it's not that it is spherical so much as like the thing that we exist on, we can only see 14.3 billion light years in every direction, but what if it's a 14.3 billion light year thick like coating on a surface, just like the atmosphere is a thin coating on a rock? What if we are looking out? Do you get what I'm saying? Not that we exist in a sphere, but we're like everything we can,
that's even more trippy, right?
But you get what I'm saying? Like the atmosphere is,
I think so, yeah.
The atmosphere is like, it's not like a two-dimensional coating on the Earth. It's like we can look up and you can see planes 35,000 feet up. So we get this feeling of 3 dimensions, but we're actually in this like it's not flat. We think it's flat, but if you zoom out, you can see you're in this 3-dimensional coating on it, because we can't go, well, we can bore down, but for intents and purposes, we're in this 3-dimensional coating.
It's a 3-dimensional surface.
Yeah. What if the universe is like we're on this 3-dimensional coating, and we just can't see over the edge? Once you get to 14.3 billion light, you could actually see 14.3 billion light years farther. You know, once you get to the horizon, you can then see the horizon again.
Yeah.
What if it just kept going? And it's so. What if it's a sphere? I don't know how big this fucking sphere would be. It'd have to be, I don't know, trillions or quintillions of light years.
It would just be so big that it seems flat locally, but we know that's possible with the Earth. So
but if you went far enough, you would eventually come back and you'd hit Earth again. Yeah. Right? Just like, you know, if you could throw a ball far, it'd come back and hit you.
Yeah.
Laying all that down for this, what if you left the Earth and it's at the speed of light looking at the big old fucking Big Ben that's saying 6 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just kept going and it's always trying to catch up to you. What would happen when you eventually came back around this coating and saw the Earth again? What the fuck would you be seeing?
Or would then become Paycheck? Have you seen that movie?
What?
I think you just wrote the movie Paycheck. Have you seen that movie?
No. Damn it. I could have sold this.
There's this Ben Affleck movie, and they claim basically what you're claiming. I don't know if it's true. God damn it. The Einstein came up with this idea that if you had a powerful enough laser that could see around the entire universe, it would come back around and like maybe hit you in the back of the head, is one funny way of saying it, but it would be in the future.
That's what I'm saying. It would be
before it left. So that's the premise of the whole movie. It's this Ben Affleck movie where he like backwards engineers this device that allows you to see into the future, but he does it for this company, and then they try to whack him because he knows too much.
He has the bat.
But he leaves clues for himself along the way. So he's guiding himself. It's like a Jason Bourne type vibe.
Jason Bourne.
It's pretty good actually. I really liked it when I was little. Paycheck.
So, but then I was thinking as I said that to you, no, it wouldn't be that you almost sneak up on the Earth. Well, eventually, once you got like equidistant, wouldn't you start seeing? Because if the clock is facing that way and it's shooting out 6 p.m. and you're seeing 6 p.m., eventually you'd hit the backside.
The other side.
You would see the other side, whatever the other side is. So eventually, would you not see like you'd see a Big Ben in front of you and behind you, and they'd be reading different times?
Behind you at
or would it still be reading 6 in front of you as well? Because wouldn't that have gone equidistant at the speed of light? Or
but the other trippy part, I like where you're going with this, and it makes some sense to me, is also the direction change. Like if it really was a circle, the spaceship would be turning versus the clock might just fly off tangentially. So there's something weird with that, and that also has to do with relativity. Like I think I was trying to understand the twin paradox more intensely when I was in college, and I was actually working, actually crunching numbers, and this might be a lie, but I swear I remember it as something that was true, that this is the most extreme example, the one flying off like this. But actually, if you put the twins both in spaceships and they're just lined up in a line, and this one takes off sooner at the speed of light, and then this one takes off a second later at the speed of light, they'll still have the paradox.
What do you mean?
Like the same exact effect could be accomplished. It's not necessarily about one of them staying still and staying on Earth. If you send them both off to Alpha Centauri at high speeds, in identical spaceships, at identical speeds, but one of them just leaves sooner. So he just starts his process of this effect sooner. Then he will have the same effect longer, and you could still wait enough time and drag them out and have one twin be 30 and one twin be 40. So it's like, why? Like, you can cut the corners. You can whittle it down to where it barely seems like anything has happened. It was same twin, same spaceship, facing the same direction, lined up. One is a little behind the other, and the one in the front, like NASCAR, he leaves first. Yeah. And then the next one leaves, and that's still enough to drag the effect out. So you're like, what the fuck? It's just Carlo Rovelli, bro. It's all about the littlest difference, the tiniest little thing mattering at the long scale.
Yeah,
I don't get it. So, but if they're side by side, I think if they're side by side,
not one in front
and
of the other,
and they leave at the same time like this, then no effect. Then they will agree. But if you put them one in front of the other and they leave in that direction with like a second between, then you can get it. And I was like really trying to actually do it. And I'm pretty sure that's what I was calculating. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, well, yeah.
I had a great physics teacher in college. Yeah. Shout out Dr. Carlson.
Shout out Dr. Carlson. Dude, I had an awesome physics teacher. I fucking loved him.
Yo, do we have one more time for another mind blower at least?
I have all the time in the world. I don't want to keep you. I got nothing doing, man. I got nothing doing.
I only had one specific thing on my agenda for both times, truly. I mean, obviously we've had a few things that we've been talking about, physics and whatnot, but it's actually more of a math thing because I'm more of a math person. I'm having to talk on my ass just a little bit.
Yeah, Trey, this is my podcast. I can go as long as I fucking want.
This is your podcast.
Oh, this is your world. We're just living in it. No, man, I don't have anything to do. I have nothing to do, man. I don't go to sleep till like midnight because I'm so cool. Stay up late, but Red Bull. But like, yeah, man. We can talk about what I don't give. Dude, some of my podcast episodes are like 4.5 hours long. I don't give a shit. I can do whatever.
Oh, that's crazy. Man.
Yeah, I can do whatever.
Killing the game.
Yeah, you can do whatever the fuck you want.
All right, so let me get into this. So the one thing I wanted to talk about that I feel like can serve in physics conversations, and even physicists might not be thinking about this when they should, is infinity.
Yeah.
Let's get into it, Tommy.
Yeah, the idea of infinity.
So the main mind-blowing thing about infinity, I guess I could reveal the fact, or I could try to have you stumble into this fact. So let me try to say it the way that really shook me to the core.
Okay.
Let's take a positive number. Any positive number you want. 7.
I was about to say 7. Okay.
There we go. And then let's take another positive number. 1/2. 7 plus 1/2. Let's take another positive number. 3. 7 plus 1/2 plus 3. If I keep doing this, keep on doing this. I force you to choose a positive number, and then you add it to all the other numbers you've had. You add 1 number, 2 number, 3 number, 4 number. You're going to add them up, and I'm never going to let you stop, and they always have to be positive numbers. What would you assume those numbers would add up to?
Well, I see what you're saying. You'd assume it's infinity, but the reality is
you'd assume it's infinity.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted you to know that.
Okay.
That's what every, in my mind, normal person would say. It's like, no, it's like you keep on adding, and you can't stop adding, and you're not allowed to add a negative to make yourself smaller. So you just keep getting bigger. So infinity.
Well,
proof.
Boom. Yeah. Even the end number is equidistant from infinity as the first number, right?
Well, the fact that is wrong. The fact that what we just said is not true is the most mind-blowing thing for me when I first started learning math. So let's see if we can dig into why this is true.
Okay.
And the famous example is the Zeno's paradox. Have you heard that one?
I remember it sounds
Zeno's paradox, the story a lot of times with Achilles and the tortoise.
No, I know.
You heard about this?
I know a different.
Achilles is going to race the tortoise, or sometimes it's an arrow, or sometimes people just talk about going from point A to point B. It doesn't really matter the setup, but it's fun to think about the original Greek setup if it really is true that it's been passed down. So Zeno's paradox, this Greek guy, he's thinking about Achilles. Achilles is a badass, fastest man in the world, never going to lose a race. So Achilles is racing the tortoise, but he's so gangster that he's like, yo, give the tortoise a head start, right? So this is the tortoise. and this is Achilles, and he gives them like a 10-meter head start, something like this. And then Achilles decides to start running, okay? But let's imagine watching this as a video. What if Achilles runs 5 meters? The tortoise, no matter how slow he's going, has moved a little bit in the time that it took Achilles to go that 5 meters.
Okay.
So now he has more than 5 to make up. He has like 6 to make up now. But then 3, now we go halfway again. Now the turtle has moved further, 3. And then this keeps on happening. So the argument was, how can Achilles, we know he's going to win. Intuitively, he has to beat the tortoise. How can he ever pass the tortoise if he always has to go half the distance between him and the tortoise, and then the tortoise has moved further in one direction? Or maybe just a more intuitive way to think about it is, this is a lie, what I'm about to tell you, that my dad told me, right, when I was little, was that imagine you're standing in front of a wall.
You go halfway to the wall.
You go halfway to the wall, then you go halfway to the wall, and halfway to the wall, and halfway to the wall. You can keep halving, you'll never get to the wall. I was like, what? So for thousands of years, they couldn't figure this out, right? Thousands of years. And then finally, Newton figured it out. That actually, no, you can get to the wall, which we all knew intuitively, but we couldn't reconcile it. And basically the reason is, I'll explain it in 2 different ways, is that the game we were playing, where I made you add a number and add a number and add a number, sometimes it's infinity, but sometimes it isn't. So let me give you one that is infinity. So 1 plus 1/2 plus 1/3 plus 1/4 plus 1/5 plus ... That's infinity. If you add 1 and then 1/2 and then 1/3 and 1/4, if you add the numbers in this pattern, you'll keep on getting bigger. You'll have no hope of converging. We say the answer to that, we would say, is infinity, or it tends towards infinity. But what about this? Subtly different, not that different. 1 plus 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8 plus 1/16. The one that we were just talking about. Yeah. Now we're halving the numbers, right? These are fractions that are getting smaller, but they're not getting smaller very quickly, we say.
Versus, okay.
Right? 1/2, they start off the same, but 1/4 is smaller than 1/3. 1/8 is smaller than 1/5. Or I might have fucked that up, but you see what I'm saying? Yeah. These are getting smaller faster. And so actually, this one was infinity, remember?
Yeah.
This one equals 2. Fucking 2?
Wait, what? Why?
It equals 2.
Why?
Why, right? And the reason is...
Because you can never get... Okay.
There's different infinities at play. So the numbers, we would say, are getting infinitely smaller.
Okay.
So you sort of have a cancellation of infinity. These numbers are getting smaller, but they're not getting smaller very fast. And so this is going to diverge. These numbers are getting smaller. They're getting smaller quite fast.
Okay.
And that's enough such that no matter how many you add, you'll never pass 2. Right? So if you add in this pattern, you'll never get to 3. In this pattern, any number you tell me, 10 billion. I can keep on adding, and eventually I'll pass 10 billion.
Okay.
100 billion, 100 billion. I can keep on adding. Eventually, I'll pass 100 billion.
But that one will
100
never
trillion.
Yeah.
Now I can pass it. Here,
you can never get
doesn't
past.
work that way. If you say 1.5, I'll pass 1.5. Yeah, I actually passed it in 3 terms.
Yeah.
If you say 1.6, I'll pass it in maybe 6 terms.
Anything
but if you say
under
2.1,
yeah.
I'll never fucking pass 2.1. In fact, I'll never pass 2.
Okay.
And so these facts, these are facts, bro. This isn't like your opinion about it. And so it's so hard to be like, wait, what? It's so counterintuitive. So that's the one way of explaining it. Let me get into it one other way, and then I'll let you ask me some questions if you have them.
Fuck yeah.
Is that there's 2 types of infinities at the least. Okay, so I just kind of talked about how like one infinity is going one way. They're getting infinitely smaller. There's multiple infinities floating around in the problem you have to account for. So the one real trip that's related to this is that we have sets of numbers in math. So we have the natural numbers, which are like the numbers you count. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That's supposed to be an N. I don't know if you can read my shitty handwriting.
N.
But we use a fancy N in math.
Yeah.
We put like an extra line on it. So the N for natural numbers. Then we have the integers, we call them. The integers include all the natural numbers. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 off to infinity, but it also has 0 and the negatives. So I'll write like ... -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, ...
I'm paying. I got
the whole numbers.
My allergy med. Yeah, I'm listening. I have bad allergies. People are always like, "What the fuck are you taking?" And I'm like, "It's none of your business."
Then we have the rational numbers. These are just fractions. So the rational numbers are like ratios of the numbers earlier. So like 3/2. I won't try to order these in any order, but 3/2. -17/5, 1/6, 1/100th. Decimals, finite terminating decimals, fractions, things like this.
Yeah.
And then finally, the real numbers, which is just all the numbers you've ever really thought about. So you get weird things like pi and e and the square root of 2 and everything above. Okay, so these are the sets of numbers. So the real mindfuck is z includes n. Hopefully I've described that well, right? Yeah. Z is all the whole numbers, n is the counting numbers. Z is bigger than n because it includes n. Q includes z. So because every number is just a number over itself. So like 3/1 is a ratio, that's 3. 7/1 is a ratio, that's 7. But you can also do like 3/7, right? A ratio that doesn't divide evenly. So these include the fractions that don't reduce. And then the real numbers is everything above. Ready for this fact? About to blow your mind. You ready? I just said something that's a little Englishy, a little not mathy, was that this has to be bigger. Which in some sense is true because, again, it includes the one above it. And same here. Bigger. What does bigger mean when something's infinite?
What is your value? Right? What is your value of bigger?
What do you mean bigger, Trey?
Absolute value?
This first one is already infinitely many things. So this is the thing that even physicists, I feel like, fuck up, is then they're not addressing this specific issue. We have something called cardinality, which is a way of like rigorously saying if something's bigger or not, which is to count the members in the set. The cardinality of these three is the same. So there's the same number of integers as there is natural numbers. No, you're like, wait, Trey, no, that's impossible. There's more integers. I see that the integers include the natural numbers. Therefore, there's more of these. No, that's not right, because there's an infinite number of the original. So more infinite than infinite.
Yeah.
You have to quantify that rigorously.
Yeah.
So in absolute, undeniable, pure form, they've proved that all of these are what they call countably infinite. Because you can count them. You can make an algorithm that lists them in order, and then if you tell me one that you want to see appear in the list, if we wait enough time, we are guaranteed to see that one come up. So you can list them.
Okay.
This one is called uncountably infinite, and it's way, 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 way more infinite. It's way bigger. So it's just like, wait, what?
More infinite?
This one's bigger than this one, is bigger than this one, but you're telling me they're all the same level of bigness. This one, why is this jump different? It just has more numbers. But this is a continuum. We say, like you can't even begin to list them. If you try to just list the numbers between 0 and 1, you'll never do it. 0, 0.000000000. You just have to keep saying zeros forever, and then eventually like put a 1 at the end of it, and that would be like the first number.
Yeah, but then I can just multiply that by itself.
There's no way to even start the listing process. Here, even though there's so fucking many rationals that you can't even really get a grip on it, you could still say, okay, 17/3 is the 9 billionth rational in the list. I can cook up a list that goes through every single one.
But something like pi.
Pi is real, right? So pi is a non-terminating, non-repeating decimal. That's what characterizes the difference in this last one. Any decimal that you can say 0.125 that terminates is a fraction.
Okay.
And it's easy to cook up what it is, because 0.125 is 1/10, 2 100ths, and 5 1,000ths. So it's 125 over 1,000.
Yeah.
And then you can reduce that fraction, and it turns out to be 1/8.
Yeah.
Right? 0.125 is 1/8 in reduced form. But if you don't know, if you're not sure, you can just write down 125 over 1,000. That's a terminating decimal. A repeating decimal is one that doesn't terminate, but it has a pattern that repeats.
0.3333, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 0.3333.
Leroy Jenkins.
1/3, right? So any decimal that repeats or terminates is a rational number. If we spend enough time, we could figure out a way of writing it as a ratio.
Yeah.
But everything else, square root of 2, right, is just some random 1.417256392. You just do the random number wrap.
Yeah.
And it never repeats. It never terminates. Those are most of the numbers. And it's not even close. It's not even close. This set is, again, way bigger. I'm being
but how can you
a little imprecise in saying that. But it's a type of infinity. So these are both infinities, but they are two different infinities. This is countably infinite. This is uncountably infinite. And so physicists, I feel like they just say, oh, the universe is infinite. And they aren't really respecting the fact that there's all this mind-blowing math that can fuck with what you're saying, because you have to be really precise about what type of infinity, things like this.
For the non-countably infinites, your pi, your e.
Yeah.
Are any of those more uncountably, now we're just butchering English, are they more uncountably infinite than the others, or are they an equal type of uncountably infinite in that they are in that, what is it, do you say cardinal?
The cardinality.
Right? The
cardinality of the set, we say, is the number in the set.
Yeah. So
when the number is infinite, right? If you just have a finite set, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. The cardinality is 3.
Okay.
But if it's an infinite set and the cardinality is infinite, you have to be precise about what infinite it is, because again, Z includes N. We don't say that that's not true. We're like, no, Z isn't bigger than N in the sense that it includes it. But you just have to think more critically about inclusion when something's infinite. In the same way that we together got the problem wrong that I started this rant with, was that you can add an infinite number of things and it doesn't have to be infinity. The only reason you wouldn't know that is because you haven't been trained to think about these infinities more carefully and more precisely.
But in the bottom set,
yes,
are any of those, can you break those down, whereas they are the ones in the bottom are uncountably infinite? You said it's way quote bigger than the upper set.
Yes.
Could that happen again? Can within that bottom set, can one of those be more infinitely uncountable? Can the same relation exist again in terms of like?
I see what you're saying. Yes. So there is maths that actually force this to happen. They kind of construct infinities that are bigger. So in a mathematical Platonic sense, yes, you're absolutely right. And there you could spend the whole rest of your life, well, not just you, anyone, right? You could study, they're called ordinal numbers. And its cardinality is bigger than this cardinality. And you could study that forever, and it would mind fuck you for the rest of your life, and you could never see the ends of it. But more importantly, just for a regular mathematician who's just doing like maybe applied math like me, or just everyday interactions, is that with the numbers that you think of, and it includes the complex numbers would be the next set. I don't know if you know anything about those, and that's sort of like the final frontier that most people need to worry about.
What is
it's
that?
really just these two. And in fact, if you could prove that there was one between them, you would be famous, because they don't know the answer to that. But I think then someone used some crazy Gödel logic mind games and proved that it's unprovable that there's one between them. So not just you can't say if there's one between those two, but that you can't use the regular axiomatic formalism of math to say if there is or there isn't. So it's almost like an opinion as a mathematician that you're allowed to have, that this is one type of infinity and then the next type of infinity is this, and there's no infinities in between. Or you could say maybe there's some weird half infinity, average type of infinity between these, and no one will ever know the answer to that question. It's an unprovable statement.
It's kind of like, is there something moving faster than the speed of light in the universe and we can't? It's like, well, that's like that's like an easy out. It's didn't we learn about that in like religion class at Pius? Like or maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was about atheism. Isn't there some like example? It's like the teapot floating between Mars and us, and it's a way to say that the burden of proof is on you, because you could say, oh, there's a teapot between Mars and us, and it's like, well, no, there's not, and it's, well, how do you know there's not? And it's like, even the best telescopes couldn't possibly make out the teapot between here and them. And it's like, well, that's an easy out. You can just say, oh, well, you haven't found the teapot yet. It's sort of like, no, the burden of proof lies on you. So it's like the faster than light thing. It's maybe it could happen, but you're saying it exists outside of all physical laws. Well, that's a cop out. That's that's saying God when you're arguing against superpowers. It's like Dr. Manhattan is like a cop out. It's like, well, that's blue God. Like it's anything you can make up, he can do it better. So it's a shitty cop out. It's I'm infinity plus one. It's it's like a kid. So you could say that it's unprovable. Back to
the intuition, right? When you're little, you do say that infinity plus one.
I'm 10 infinity.
Infinity plus one is just infinity, right?
I'm 100 infinity. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, right. 100 times infinity is also infinity. These are the things like you have to almost deconstruct your intuition growing up as a kid. Yeah, my favorite one of those is that bears speak English when they're alone in the woods.
Yeah, I haven't heard
That's my favorite one.
Good,
hey, did you know that bears speak English when they're alone in the woods? I'm like, what? No, they don't. It's like, prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They wouldn't be doing it if you were there. That's,
exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's very simple.
Prophecy.
It's a very simple. It's like, or the idea that you can't imagine nothing. Well, nothing would be nothing. Well, no, because what you just talked about is a thought. That is an idea, and that exists. That's not nothing. So nothing is then, it cannot be anything that I can think of. Well, no, because now we just defined it again. So it must be anything that we have yet to define. Well, no, because now this is a thing.
Now you find it.
It exists outside of that. So it's that. It exists outside of all. No, well, no. Nothing can only be silence because anything that you. Well, now it can't even be that because now I have just said it is.
Yep. It reminds me of paradoxes too, right? Because those can really exist too. Like the famous one from Bertrand Russell is the guy who shaves. Have you heard this one? The barber.
No.
There's a town. This one's actually hard to think about, but is the famous one. I'll tell you my favorite version. I think borderline I might have made up as a kid. There's a town where the barber shaves everyone who doesn't shave themselves. Right? There's a town where the barber shaves everyone who doesn't shave themselves.
Well, then it's
who shaves the barber?
Well, if no one shaves him, then doesn't he shave him?
It's one of those, right? If no one shaves him, if he doesn't shave himself, then he shaves himself because we know he shaves everyone who doesn't shave himself. But if he shaves himself, then he doesn't shave himself because he doesn't shave people who shave themselves. So there's a little word game, right?
Yeah.
Another one is, so there's another classic one, which is, this sentence is false.
Yeah. Which he can't.
Full stop.
Which he can't.
So that means it's true, which means it's not false, which means. And then my favorite one is if Pinocchio is sitting there and he says, "My nose is about to grow."
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So if he's lying, then his nose is not about to grow, but then his nose would grow. Or if he's telling the truth, then he's not lying. So why would his nose grow?
Within that sentence is true. It says, "My nose is about to grow." Within that is true, right? Because you could say, "My nose is about to grow. My name isn't Pinocchio." Well, no.
When he says, "My nose is about to grow," the universe explodes, right? Neither option makes sense. If his nose does grow, it doesn't make sense. And if his nose doesn't grow, it doesn't make sense, right? Because if he says, "My nose is about to grow," and that's the truth, right?
Because he's about to tell a lie,
His nose has to grow because it was the truth. But his nose only grows when he tells a lie.
Or does the universe then, it has to splinter into infinite timelines?
It's worse than that. It's not that one could happen and one could happen. You can't tell the difference. It's that neither can happen.
So the thing is he can never. Okay. So then Pinocchio.
There's nothing.
He just can't.
Either way.
Yeah. There's no point in getting into it. There's a reason. There's a reason it's a paradox.
Neither makes sense after he says, "My nose is about to grow."
So
neither one makes sense. It's a paradox.
So the only truth we know is that he could never say that sentence.
He could never say that sentence. Something would prevent him. If it was a consistent universe, he would never be able to. Someone would punch him in the face before he finished saying it.
Yeah, it couldn't happen.
And it would change. Or maybe his mouth. He would say, "Not about to grow."
Yeah. Or as soon as he says it, he would
go mute. He would die.
He ceases to be Pinocchio. Maybe that's how he breaks. I don't know, the curse of being Pinocchio.
That would be a fucking trippy thing if he became a real boy.
That's how he becomes a real boy. It's because he gets. But yeah, it's not just some magic. It's just some universal error, computational error. It's so kind of jumping on a. Not even, to me, it's all math, so I just assume it's all math. To you, you're into math, so you could probably say this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But to me, all math is math. So with like a Googleplex in a Google, how are they always bigger? Because I always I'll go on like YouTube, just like binges, and I'll be like, find these like math videos, and it's like, now these numbers are even bigger than these numbers. But to me, it's like, how can like one be? Because they'll come up with like, there's a Google and then a Googleplex, and what is like a Google isn't a Google 1 followed by 100 zeros?
Correct.
And a Googleplex.
And a Googleplex is a 1 followed by a Google zeros.
Which is that, and then isn't there? Can't you take one and be like, and now this?
Now you could say a Googleplex, which is 1 followed by a Googleplex zeros.
And then you could raise that to a Googleplex, right?
Sure. Take the power. Sure. Yep.
But isn't it like you couldn't write it? It's like because the amount of paper it would take to write the zeros expands. It's bigger than the universe, even if you wrote with the smallest possible, the finest pen, where it's like you could write a zero with like electrons. It would still.
That's why you have to believe in like a Platonic mathematical reality, or at least in my opinion, it makes so much sense to say that mathematics is this beautiful, ethereal, almost magical thing that exists outside of us, because we're able to contemplate these numbers that are so big, but in practice, you could never get your hand on them. You're right. If every single atom was one number, there's still only like, I think 2 to the, I don't even know, 60 or 70 atoms in the universe. So every proton, every electron, if you enumerated every single particle, you still wouldn't even come near some of these big numbers that we know about.
What's the name of that scientist who you said like the number of atoms, and then once they discovered subatomics, but there's some number. Well, Ray Kurzweil talks about it. He's like, the smallest computer we could get, we'd have something like 10 raised to the 76 transistors or something, or I don't know, logic gates. I don't even know what the fuck it is. But then there's something larger than that, and I can never remember the name of the video. But it's like a type of number that's even larger than that. It's like every number is like you raise it to itself, or so. I don't know. But how can any of these numbers, like, what are the purpose of these things? Is it literally just like professors sitting around just like smoking pot and doing coke and just coming up with crazier things? Like, or is there any like reason to any of these? Is there any value to them? Otherwise, is it just like infinity? It's fucking, what's the difference between, like I don't know, whether or not like an atom on Pluto is here or there? How does it, because technically all things attract and repel all things, so you get to this negligible point. What is the purpose of those? Is it just coke and math?
I think if we were forced to use numbers smaller than a certain really big number, we could still do all of our calculations, and it wouldn't. If we just said like, 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the 10 is the biggest number, and that's it, I think we would still be fine. Practically speaking, calculations would be the same, all of that. But it's just that idea of contemplating the infinite, right? Contemplating, it's almost like my version of a god or something, right? It's just this weird Platonic mathematical reality. And that's why really dope mathematicians, when they're doing math, they say they feel more like an archaeologist than an inventor, right? They're not inventing new maths. They're like exploring the landscape of what already exists, what's already there. They're mental adventurers, right? They're going around and, this is this way. You can't just make some shit up like this math. I mean, sometimes it feels like that. But then when you flush it out, there's always kind of going to be consequences and results and relations that you weren't expecting. And that gives you the feeling of like, well, this was already there. This was ahead of me. This was existing before me, outside of me.
That's what I always think of when I think about like DNA replication and these like tiny little fucking proteins folding and all this shit. And it's like, we're discovering it now, and it's like our best supercomputers can barely simulate down to the atomic level, like even one second of a protein folding. But then it's like, I always think like, I don't know why I always think of George Washington walking on like a road with like almost think of like some like deep South road, like with the big like willow trees. I don't know why I always imagine George Washington walking, but I always think him walking down that road has no idea that like all these how many cells do you have in your body? Something like 70 trillion. They're all replicating
More than that. Oh, cells maybe. Yeah.
Cells.
I was
not
thinking
atoms.
particles.
Cells.
Yeah.
But it's like they're all just like cranking out like DNA and adenine and guanine, and it's like even though like George Washington just like walking around with his like stupid cotton clothes and his fucked up teeth, he can't imagine it, but that's still all happening. Even though he hasn't uncovered it. He has like an archaeologist removed the fog of ignorance, or I guess preemptive evolution. We haven't figured it out. It's still happening. It's like whether or not you got your calculations right about the Earth being flat, it didn't matter. Like it was still occurring on. There was an ultimate reality. You're still occurring on this thing. Yeah, that's what it is. Is it? So even if we haven't uncovered this shit, even if we haven't perfected, like, I don't know, just like perfect nuclear fusion, like but it's still happening. It's
right.
There's math that even if we haven't uncovered it, it still exists, and it's this concrete law. Now, what is that? Because if it's not like a physical, tangible thing, and it's just logic, is that just like, could there be beings with different brains who our math to them is just gobbledygook, but they see patterns and think just like entropy? It's like, is entropy really just more so like an opinion? Like we gave it a value of like 4 A's versus just this is over. Delete my number, Tommy. Fuck you.
I would hope not. I mean, I know what you're saying. It does make sense to me. I mean, you can even imagine beings living there. What if this is a space where people live in this platonic reality?
What if
I think we think the math would be the same. If they can count, they know about integers, they would invent calculus. But that still presupposes they're kind of behaving on our level, not moving at the speed of light, things like this. Yo, I gotta pee though. Yeah.
Do you need to go pee?
You gonna timestamp us, bro?
Yeah, actually, I'll go pee too. I got nothing doing, man. But I wrote down the wrong timestamp. That's weird. It's 1:43. I wrote down 40. Doesn't matter.
People can see me pee. It's okay.
What? It does. Yeah.
So the people can pee. It's okay.
Yeah. You okay if we keep rambling? I don't want to keep you. I got nothing doing. I'm not trying to politely kick you off. I got nothing doing. I just don't want to keep you. Because I'll never shut up. I'll keep talking and talking and talking.
Let's go for a little bit more. End it on a high note.
Yeah.
I felt like the pee hit me so fast. I was like, I don't have to pee the first time you peed. And then just the coffee ran through me that second time.
You gotta go. Once you gotta go, you gotta go, because the conversation turns to shit when you're just like, I gotta fucking go. Where's timestamp? Want to go for like another 15 minutes?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. So, do you think, so whenever I would try to think about like the universe in college, and I'll try to like explain it to myself, you know, like what's the quote, like eventually hydrogen asks itself where it came from, like in a long enough timeline hydrogen will eventually ask itself where it came from. Do you think that consciousness is just a side effect, or just like like an effect of the universe? It's just like one thing happening within it? Or do you think that it is the primary, like, is that the natural selection of these multiverses blossoming? Which one can create sentience? Which one can, because there's things existing, and then there's experience of it.
I think I lean sort of boring, naturalist, nothing special about it. I think because I grew up so overly Christian.
Yeah, same.
That I believed so hard the other way that then now I'm skeptical of any beliefs placed on that side of the line. That there's some sort of agenda or reasoning that's not actually from logic and understanding. So I like to say I'm a betting atheist. That I like to go agnostic, like just I preach agnosticism in all things. Like the more sure you are of yourself, like the stupider you're gonna look, you know. So agnostic in all things. But if there was like a final hand of poker and I had to like go all in on like yes or no, I would definitely be betting towards no. But I think about this a lot. I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I like to listen to artificial intelligence podcasts and things like this. And one of the things that really annoys me is that they always don't spend enough time, or they spend too much time, but they just can't agree on like the definition of either intelligence or consciousness. And so I was thinking about it a lot, and I think I have like a good start to how you would talk about it, which is instead of defining consciousness abstractly or intelligence, you would define, let's say, an intelligent decision. Let's not define intelligence. Let's define an intelligent decision. Because after all, when you say this was intelligent, what do you mean this? A person or a what does the noun, what noun does intelligent act on? Well, really, it's a decision. And then a person who makes intelligent decisions, we say is intelligent, or a computer that makes intelligent decision, or an animal, right? And so then I was thinking about it, and actually from a company that I know about, that I've been reading about for a while, is called Anmcc, and they kind of felt like they cracked the code for intelligent decisions, which is that they programmed a computer to do the following: to maximize future opportunity. So like, look at the landscape, look at the amount of possibilities of things that can happen, and figure out what leaves the most doors open.
Okay.
Now, this is hard to quantify, right? Maybe you shut one door and that was actually the right door, but you opened 30 doors. So it's not like an end-all be-all, but just the idea of more opportunity, more options, more freedom of choice.
Always having an exit.
Always wanting that. And so this computer would do things like they would give it a skateboard, and they would give it like a stick. And, you know, this whole game where you like move your hand, balance a stick left and right, it would do that without them telling it to. They wouldn't be like, hey, Anmcc, balance the stick. They would just tell it all the degrees of freedom, and it would just be able to see that if it lets the stick fall, it kind of jams up the wheels. The skateboard, the simulation is done. The future becomes fixed. It becomes, this is the only thing I'm able to do for the rest of the time. But if I balance the stick, then I'm able to go all over the whole space, and I'll just keep on bouncing it, and every possible angle and position is still available to me. And so to me, that was so genius. They've used it to trade stocks, they've used it to plan like shipping, scheduling, and it's like a really successful, but it kind of died off. It was popping like maybe 10 years ago, and I haven't heard about it as much. But to me, trying to do something like that, define an intelligent decision, and then say what's intelligence, it's something that makes intelligent decisions. I think you can extend that to consciousness. I haven't been able to work out all the details in my head because I didn't know about, like I said, some other program. But what is consciousness? Well, it's something that makes conscious decisions. What is a conscious decision? Then you can get into that. Well, maybe it's an intelligent decision plus some sort of self-awareness. Yeah. That's the closest I've come so far. So there's like the famous story about the elephants who go to burial sites, right? Elephants will like go way out of the way on a journey to like go see the bones of dead elephants that they were homies with, and then go get water. So it's like, that wasn't very intelligent. You like made your trip longer and harder to get water. You took a detour. Yeah, that wasn't intelligent maybe, but it was conscious. It was self-aware. So it was like the wherewithal to find the bones and know about the bones and remember that you knew that person. That sort of seems intelligent or conscious and self-aware. And so I think you just have to stack these layers of so it's a roundabout way of saying I don't really know. I lean towards thinking it's just particles and interactions and things like this. But I think until they really pin down exactly what we should be thinking about when we say intelligence or consciousness, I don't even feel like I should be deciding one way or the other, because I feel like it's sort of ill-defined in the first place, you know? Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, even some whales will give each other burials. Like they'll push the carcass to a certain, and there's no benefit. Like it costs calories to do this. Like there could be predators, but it's like they'll go out of their way to do something where maybe not intelligent. I mean, we probably do a lot of things. I know for a fact I do a lot of things that aren't intelligent, but like, you know,
right.
But you could say it's conscious, you know. Why am I holding on to this image of my brother? Like, intelligently, like, no, this is requiring calories and it's space and you move it around and that requires gas, but I'm holding on to this thing that provides no nutrition, no nothing. And that's one thing I've always thought of is like, no matter how we break down intelligence, consciousness is, it's always, I mean, it's kind of like that in between infinity. Like you can
it's
almost
exactly like that. I was about to say that.
You can't prove it.
Intelligence is subset of consciousness. You can be intelligent without being conscious
Yeah.
by just always making intelligent decisions. But if you're conscious, you have to already have the intelligence to sort of like not do
something,
the best thing for a different reason, for a reason that's personal in some sense, is like self-aware.
Yeah, it's because, I mean, if you ever do like meditation and get really into like a state of like samadhi, like you just are. You're not doing anything. It's not like you're getting really smart so you can plan your next stock trade. No, you're not doing anything.
Right.
But you are overwhelmingly isness. You really are. And it's like, but you're not doing it. But what is that? What is like, the way I look at it is like what Alan Watts says. It's just like, just get still. Just get quiet. What is this? Don't tell me this is a computer and this is Earth. No. This isness. What is that? Like, so what is that? Can that ever even be explained? And I think it eventually, 10 years of meditating and copious amount of marijuana and psychedelics it comes down to, I think, two roads. And it's either it's solipsism. I cannot prove that anything exists outside of my subjective experience, or that I exist implies that there can be other I's. If I am here, well, then I can imply that Trey is an I. Or I could say I cannot prove anything except outside of this exists, and therefore it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if I do some Turing test. Like, how do I not know that's... Imagine if you got a robot to pass the Turing test, but it happened in your dream. Well, then that's not real. It didn't actually fucking happen, right? So it's one of two things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is there again, because I don't want to say that is certain, because like we've just been saying, everything gets proven wrong. But it's either nothing can exist outside of this. I do not have a podcast audience. There is no world outside. There is no political elections. There are no sports teams. It's all in my head. Or if I can exist, which I am sure of, because this isness.
Yeah.
Then if it can happen once, why can't it happen somewhere else?
Yeah.
And can it be broken down farther than that? Have we reached our Planck space, our Planck length? Like we can't.
I think that's about it. The only tricky part for me is, one, if the isness is human centric, like if that thing that Alan Watts is telling us to do, why we assume that maybe animals can't do that, because it feels like most people assume that animals can't do that.
Yeah.
And then the other one being that, like what you're saying, is me thinking you're real and you thinking I'm real. Is that just practical? Is it just make more sense if you're doing your isness and I'm doing my isness, and you're telling me you're doing yours and I'm telling you that I'm doing mine? Does it just seem more likely? Like, why do we assume that one makes more sense versus all the brain in the vat argument? Like, is there actually a good reason to that it just like jives with us better, or is it like scientific? You know what I mean?
I always think it's like, to me, I really think they're split right down the middle. Because whether or not I conclude that this is real or that I'm a brain in a vat, regardless, something I can conclude is that this experience is happening. Because even if I wasn't a brain in a vat and then I was woken up and shown the outside of my vat, that could be an experience of a brain in a vat. So what matters is there is isness, and I cannot prove to anyone else that like thisness is happening. There is I. Something is going on. You can't vocalize it. So it doesn't matter whether it's a brain in a vat or I'm in a simulation or that this is ultimate reality. If I just am, only I can know that, and thus I have to assume I can't ever prove anything outside of this, and thus I am the only thing. Or if this isness has seemingly, I can't look back farther than my birth, so I am this like bubble of sentience that happened. Well, if one bubble forms, then why can't it happen somewhere? Like what Alan Watts says, he's like, to me, he's like, I don't see that the universe dies and it goes away and into nothingness. If it happened once, it can happen again. Like, why would it only happen once? He's like, that's much more rare. That this thing only happens once. Like, it's rare to get, your heads and the tails. You got a 50-50 chance, but like, it will happen again. It's much more rare. Yeah, it's much more rare that you will never get. You'll get heads and then you'll never get it again. That is wildly more unlikely.
Improbable,
Yeah, so it's... But then, can it ever be... How could I ever... Because even if we were to merge minds with Elon Musk...
I was about to say that. That's what I want. Elon Musk
Neuralink. If we merge minds and I can look into trays and here we are, there's no way of me knowing that that is not happening in my own dream.
I think there'll be a trip, though, when people start doing that. It'll be like convincing on a whole nother level.
Just a whole
It's going to be trippy on a whole nother level where I'm convincing you because of the way I'm behaving and acting and moving. But then when our brains touch, it's going to be like a fucking psychedelic of like, he is real. Like, you can know it a little more.
Yeah.
You can know it a little more, right?
It's going to be something outside of this reality. It's going to be going from third to fourth dimension. It's not just like... Hey, look at me. My house is bigger. It's like, no, you're going from the Flatlanders to, hey, here is dimension. And it's like, what? Or it's like if you could step outside of time and you see that time is just like a hill. Or is it what they say in Interstellar? Like, these beings could, like, past and future could just be the equivalent of, like, walking up a hill. It might not be, that was then and I can never go back and see my grandpa again. That just might be like, oh, no, grandpa, here's grandpa. Here's, we think it's chair, it's... Yeah, I think that's what it'd have to be. I remember Duncan Trussell said that on Rogan way back in, like, I don't remember, it was one of my favorite clips, 2012 maybe, and he was like, that's what it's going to be, is like the first two scientists in the lab are going to be like, and you're going to instantly, you're going to know everything that he knows. You could, if I'm Trey, I'm going to know how to rap now. If you're, I don't know what I have, but if you're me, you're going to be like, oh, I instantly have memories of every single one of his podcasts, or I'm going to know all about your family, and I'm going to know what it's like to be you, and you go to St. John Newman, you're instantly going to know everything about OLA, and you're going to know my experiences of losing a brother, and I'm going to know yours of losing a father, and it's going to be just crazy, like, and then they're going to come apart, and life is going to seem so bland. You're going to go, I just experienced godness. But then you're going to get a third person in there, and that is going to be to two people what two people was to one. It's going to be higher God. Well, then you're going to go, oh, shit, there's 7.5 billion of us. And then that's the event horizon of what is capable. It is beyond, I don't know. It's 5 o'clock, and
let's do it with that, bro. And let's have a podcast when that happens. Let's do a brain.
Yeah. Oh, dude, when Neuralink happens, you and I are plugging in.
Let's sign up for it, right?
Yeah. Fuck yeah, dude. I'll let Elon drill a hole in my mind. I don't give a shit, man. Fuck it. Let's roll. With how shit's going down, that's the least of my worries. Fuck it, Elon. Plug me in.
Yep.
That's going to be the fucking podcast. And you're going to literally be able to do the Joe Rogan experience. Like, you're literally going to be, let me do the... Fuck, man. Trey, let's do another one, brother. Thank you for doing this one.
Fuck yeah, bro. I hope I don't overstay my welcome. I don't want to be
Dude, I don't give a shit. No,
I'm the Rogan podcast that's on it too much. You know, there's always the one guy who you like to see, and then there's the other guy you're like, this guy, Tom Papa.
Yeah, he's like, he's cool. I like him, but like,
nothing against him. But
no. I would say you're more my Duncan Trussell. Whenever I see him, I'm like, great. You need to be here more. Like, no. I have some guests that I'm like, I'm gonna have you on this frequently, and that's it.
Cool, man.
But yeah, no, I still haven't found my Alex Jones yet. I don't know if I want to. But
your special guest.
Freaking interdimensional vampires. They're coming for you. they're coming. George Soros. It's a 4-dimensional universe. It's okay. So yeah. No, dude, you are not. Absolutely not. I'm not even saying that because it's recording. It's you are more than welcome to come on whenever the fuck you want. Major Third Hip Hop. Your tune of songs. FYB. Is it Fuck Your Bitch? Fuck You Bitch. And
Fuck You Bitch.
And Dear Dad. I like them both, man. I like Fuck You a Bitch a lot. That jives with me. That for sake of privacy, I won't say her name, but I know know what you're talking about, dude. I felt it.
Yeah.
I got
in trouble with some of that too as well. I posted something maybe that was too revealing. I had to take it down, but
no, you don't.
It's all good, bro.
Just don't say a name, man. Just don't say a name.
Don't say a name. It's good.
Yeah. You know who you are. You know who you are. It's just a song I'm playing. I like it, man. I like it. All right, brother. Take care. Godspeed.
All right, man. I'll see you next time, bro.
Of course. See you, buddy.